just imagine for a second if you could truly build a GTM signal machine that really ran off Python and was really research and prompt based. And so that's kind of been the vision for a long time. Like if you see some of our posts, we talk about using Claude, Anthropic, MCP, and really that vision there is just bringing all that data together into some level of large language model orchestration to kind of build out robust lead generation lists in ways that no one can. So we've talked a lot about that. I've spent a little bit more time, I continue to evolve knowledge around MCP and how to connect things. And, OpenAI is integrated. They have their capabilities. Anthropic's integrated. But now we're really kind of diving into this a little bit more with Manus. And so why Manus? As I've gotten to use the tool more, and you can kind of see on the left side of my screen there what we tried to do with it. It just, it impresses me more, right? It gives me more capabilities that I didn't think we had. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this concept for the next few minutes called GTM Alpha. Again, I didn't coin the phrase. Kareem, who's the founder of Clay, came up with it. He talked about it in a post not too long ago, but it's really the concept of just like, look, at the end of the day, everybody's grabbing lead lists from certain providers, LinkedIn predominantly, and then maybe in some level they're enriching that, getting emails, getting phone numbers, doing LinkedIn outreach. But I think the concept of alpha is really just about diving deep into the true signals that you can garnish from data that are indicative that someone needs your product or service. So that concept, I don't think it's new. I think the complexity of it is really evolving just because what we can do with AI. So I've been trying to just push the limits really on what these models can do because look, at the end of the day, they drive efficiency, they can drive a competitive advantage. And no matter what models you're using, right, I have never been able to build like a super large lead list, but I don't really know that I need to anymore if the focus is GTM Alpha, right? So, just imagine if you send 300 emails, we'll just use emails as a medium. It could be LinkedIn message, anything. And they're to the exact people who need your service, you're going to get a lot of engagement, right? I think the other side of that is you send 3,000 emails to people who just happen to be in a role of someone that may or may not need your service, then, you could get equal or much less engagement. I mean, we've done it to the tunes of millions. We've seen campaigns where we just hit the nail, very small campaigns, hit the right lead list spot on and just get mind-blowing results. And then we've seen campaigns where look, we send a whole lot of emails and get no results, right? So the evolution here, I think, is really the thought process around how do we use the data world, the power of these models, and bring them all together. So I set that up by telling you, look, I've been trying to build what's called a GTM Alpha machine in Manus. And so you're kind of seeing that here. And I want to give you just, some preface here is that like we don't really know where we're going with this, but we think it definitely has some amazing promise. And so while we've been talking, Manus has been working in the background, trying to build me a website so I could show you. But the concept simply here is like we gave it a prompt, we gave it an example where we thought we achieved GTM Alpha, and we asked it to replicate it. And so it kind of goes through here, ask me questions. Do I want to use Clay? But I want you to start to see like how detailed this is, right? So Manus's computer goes in and starts to understand what Apify can do. It understands what Clay can do. It literally is going through the Clay University on Apify actors. So it's gathering information. And then it kind of comes up with this, GTM Alpha machine where it says like, hey, let's pull target company database, signal database, lead scoring. And this is the part I don't think a lot of people focus on, which is lead scoring and routing action automation engine. So fancy word for signal collection, weighting of signals, etc. And you can see it's pretty in depth, right? As we go through here, it gets into a lot of different signals. I think the point that really gets interesting is when you start to think about combining signals. Like, I think anybody that does this at a professional level knows how to collect funding data, but combining data and weighting that data and scoring that data based off mathematical parameters, that really changes the value of the score, right? So if you look at some of these and you're like, okay, is the job postings count greater than 20? Is the head count greater than 20? Then they purely have a high growth hiring strategy and then moderate to low, right? So if you combine that with things like, do they have a new office? Do they have a distributed team? Are they making acquisitions, leadership change? These are all things you can do with just LinkedIn data and some Google searches and stuff like that. But when you combine and weight those parameters, right, it really changes the strength of the signal. So that's one component. And then as we go through here, we start to design this signal machine, and I showed you some of this. And we start to create like an implementation file of what this would look like if we build it out in Clay. And then we start to build out API parameters, right? So this is where like, hey, it's no longer an idea. It's this is how you're going to do it, and a guide and how we're going to build this out. And we've now got our, a machine. And so, of course, me not being satisfied, like, look, this is a lot of work. I don't necessarily want to do all this. So, Manus, how can you help me kind of do this even more? And so, as you can see, we're getting a lot of different files as we build this out, right? It's getting pretty robust. But I go deeper and deeper and ask it to like, how do I figure some of this out? Like, I want signals that nobody else has thought of, right? And so it starts to give me some pretty good ideas on signals that I haven't thought of, right? It even labels it like advanced non-obvious signals. So part of this is really just prompting it into the idea that like, look, I am pretty sure other people have thought about how to pull LinkedIn data, but I want to pull different kinds of data. And we're getting deeper and deeper, and we're asking it further and further questions. And so we're getting a better signal table structure, and we're getting non-obvious signals, right? Like things like office downsizing signals and geographic dispersion signals and stuff that I highly doubt that a lot of people spend time about, but it's about GTM Alpha. So if you think about this exact client, these signals are important, right? And we need to use them to really kind of drive finding leads that other people aren't, and reaching out to leads in different ways with different signals, and making our timing just conveniently correct to a signal that we've identified. And so I wanted to be able to just kind of show you the idea here. Look, we're not there. We've got a lot of work, but I'm pretty excited about where we're going with this, the concept of this. How do we build this into Clay? How do we build this out through Manus? We've already really started testing is, can Manus actually do some of this? And I think it can. Like, this is an example where I've connected Manus to Apify, and I've connected Manus to some different tools that we use via API, and you're looking at real data coming through, and really kind of being orchestrated through code and Python to extract and get some of this data and actually build out dashboards that give me this data and calculate these scores that it says it can calculate. So it's definitely not a final product. It has some potential to do and approach things in ways that, I just don't think other people are thinking about. And I don't know that we can build all of this out in any one tool, right? So we're trying to figure out a way to bring this vibe coding capability together with this data. And let's just see what this other one came back with. If it actually gave us a website, maybe it did, maybe it don't, maybe it didn't. Yeah, it did, right? So it gave us a website. And look, this is the power of Manus, right? Where it's like that link doesn't work. Let's go back. I don't know what you were looking at. We're looking at it together, but it's giving us, just like an implementation guide and a user guide and resources. So, look, I'm not here to build a SaaS, but this is pretty phenomenal what is happening right here in front of us with how we're going to build these signals out. So, pretty excited. We'll keep you updated on how it goes, but we're going to reach alpha one way or another.